Peace be upon you all. On June 5th, two NASA astronauts boarded a spacecraft and headed towards the International Space Station. They were supposed to spend 8 days there and then return. However, they've been stuck there ever since and are unable to return. There's even talk that NASA won't be able to bring them back until 2025. This situation has, of course, caused a huge uproar in the American media and on social media platforms around the world. So, what's the story of these two astronauts who are trapped up there and still can't return? In 2014, NASA requested two companies, SpaceX and Boeing, to develop capsules or small spacecrafts to transport astronauts from Earth to the International Space Station and back. They made a contract with Boeing for $4.2 billion and with SpaceX for $2.6 billion. Of course, it was expected that Boeing would win since they had more funding and a long history in aviation. But what happened was the exact opposite. In 2020, SpaceX began their astronaut transport program and created the Dragon capsule. They successfully sent their first manned mission to the International Space Station in May 2020. Since then, they've sent 8 manned missions, all successfully returning without any problems. On the other hand, Boeing faced numerous setbacks, losing about $1.4 billion and not sending a single mission until 2024, when they finally decided to send their first mission to the space station using the Starliner capsule. Unfortunately, this is the ill-fated capsule that caused the problem the astronauts are currently facing. Since this was Boeing's first mission, they decided it would be an experimental one, sending 2 astronauts in their spacecraft to the station to stay for 8 days and then return. The 2 astronauts chosen were former U.S. Navy pilots Barry Wilmore, 61 years old, and Sunita Williams, 58 years old. Unfortunately, their bad luck with Boeing began the moment the mission started. The Starliner capsule failed to launch multiple times. The first attempt was in May, and they had to cancel the mission due to a valve issue in the rocket's pressure system. Then, just 3 minutes before another launch attempt, a malfunction occurred in the launch computer, causing another delay. Finally, on June 5th, the mission launched from Cape Canaveral. But unfortunately, things didn't go as expected. The Starliner capsule experienced a sudden helium leak during launch, which is supposed to direct fuel to the propulsion systems. This led to the failure of 5 out of 28 engines. As a result, they faced difficulties docking with the station, but after about 2 attempts, they managed to dock successfully. After they exited the capsule, they discovered the problem. The ground station contacted them and told them to stay there and not return at the scheduled time because the capsule was damaged, and it would be dangerous to return in it. And so, Barry and Sunita have been stuck on the station since then. At the time of recording this episode, they've been there for more than 2.5 months. What's the solution? How will these astronauts return to Earth with their spacecraft damaged and leaking? NASA formed a committee of experts who said they would announce the final decision in the last week of August. One proposed solution is to have the 2 astronauts exit the station and try to fix the capsule using the basic tools and equipment available on the International Space Station. But the problem is that such a mission is extremely complex and time is not on their side, especially since the capsule currently docked at the station has a limited power supply, only enough for 90 days. And unfortunately, more than 2.5 months have already passed, leaving them with less than 2 weeks. So far, they haven't made that decision, as evidenced by the fact that they haven't done anything to repair the capsule in the past 2.5 months. The second solution, which NASA is highly likely to opt for, is to seek help from SpaceX, Boeing's fierce competitor. SpaceX has a mission scheduled to go to the International Space Station in September, carrying 4 astronauts. The idea is for the SpaceX spacecraft to travel with only 2 astronauts instead of 4, leaving 2 empty seats. After arriving at the station and completing the mission, they would bring Barry and Sunita back with them. But if this happens, Barry and Sunita wouldn't return until 2025 because the SpaceX mission is planned to conclude in February next year. This means that instead of returning after 8 days, Barry and Sunita will be stuck there for more than 8 months. The second problem with this solution is that if SpaceX rescues the 2 astronauts, it would be a major blow to Boeing. Not only would their reputation be tarnished, but they would also have to undock their spacecraft from the International Space Station autonomously and make it crash into the ocean to make room for SpaceX's spacecraft, which is supposed to dock in the same spot where they are currently docked. Of course, this emergency landing would cause further complications. Additionally, if the astronauts return on the SpaceX capsule, they would have to wear SpaceX suits instead of Boeing suits. In other words, this would be a massive blow to Boeing, from which they might not recover. Beyond the corporate battles and stories, how will these two astronauts survive up there for 8 months? Is there enough food, water, and oxygen? Initially, regarding oxygen, the International Space Station has an oxygen system that recycles about 50% of the oxygen that gets expelled with carbon dioxide during exhalation, reusing it again. So, oxygen is probably not an issue for them. The station itself has sleeping quarters, bathrooms, and everything else they need. As for food and water, the supplies they brought with them won't last for that long. But on August 6th, NASA sent a small capsule to the International Space Station via a SpaceX rocket carrying food and supplies to ensure the two astronauts are well fed and taken care of. Lastly, Barry and Sunita won't be completely alone up there. The station originally had 7 other astronauts who arrived before them as part of Expedition 71 and who welcomed Barry and Sunita when they first arrived. The problem is that within a month, all the other astronauts will return, leaving only Barry and Sunita on the station. Doctors say that staying up there without a pre-planned mission will have severe negative impacts on them, especially since they are both older, at 61 and 58 years old. There's a high likelihood they could develop osteoporosis due to the lack of gravity, as well as muscle atrophy since they won't be using their muscles much up there. They could also experience vision problems due to changes in blood pressure and fluid distribution in the body. Additionally, there are mental health concerns. Being isolated and cut off from the world entirely isn't by choice, and they're likely to experience constant stress throughout this period. Finally, this situation with Barry and Sunita highlights just how costly and risky space exploration is for us. Despite the numerous achievements humanity has made in the field of space science, our ability to directly deal with the space environment remains quite limited, and we still have a long way to go. That's it for now. Who made it to the end? For those who did, you're the best. Give us a like before you go so we can see how many made it to the end, and don't forget, if you have any episode suggestions, let us know in the comments. Peace.